doing stuff like that,
Yeah.
and doing 10 different breathings, just let it happen.
Yeah.
You know, stop doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it can sound a bit like a paradox in that we're bringing all these things and we're paying a lot of cognitive sort of analytical attention to what we're doing in a sense, but actually we're not. We're paying attention to ourselves in a more experiential way in ATM. So if we're overthinking things in ATM, like, oh, now Susan said I'm doing, you know, is this the sagittal plane I'm meant to be? Is it, you know, is that the dorsum of my who's-y, what's it's moving? Or, you know, we're getting into all that kind of stuff. That's getting in the way of yourself. Whereas if you start sensing yourself in terms of your senses, that's letting the breathing happening in the breathing sort of thing. Maybe that's a possibility. Absolutely, and this is.
I like to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to know what I'm doing.
Yep. Yeah.
Eventually explain to somebody else.
Yeah.
And other people, they don't want that. They just, as you said, just.
Yeah. So what we're doing here is exploring all the different ways of. So I can just repeat what Deborah said, is that everybody learns in different ways. Everybody does learn in different ways. We should, and there are many, many different ways of learning, and what we're exploring here is many different ways of learning. Feldenkrais's kind of key hypothesis was, though, an easy and organic way to learn, if I flip the board and you see what Zoran was talking about last week, is through our own experience. And because our body is such a good tool for exploration, we can learn easily. I think why this stuff made sense to me early on in my career was because I was working with young blokes who had head injury. And if you took a really cognitive approach with them, they'd just freak out. They'd just hate it. They hated it. It reminded them of school. You know, they felt like they were being tested and they felt dumb. And it just brought up all these self-image issues. Whereas if you took them in the gym or you just did physical stuff with them and used these kind of ways of getting them to explore mental processes through their body, no drama, because there's no barrier to it. They didn't have any defences to that. And that was Feldenkrais's thing, is that most of us have less defences learning through our body than through other ways. But it's not to negate any of it. You know, he said it was all coming up the same mountain, different paths.
All of it.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Yeah. There's not even sides. There's like 60,000 paths up the mountain. It's a question of, do you know which path you're on and which one you would like to try some others? And maybe you get a different view. That's all. That's all it is, you know. Okay, what else did you hear in that talk?
Well, connected to that, he did say you don't really need psychiatrists to you just need to learn how to move.
He does tease. He has a go at all the professionals, really. In turn, I take after him in that sense. I take my lead from him. He said that, you know, we get a lot of neuroses and psychoses, and he says this in many ways, that if we just sort of stopped and paid attention to ourselves and what we were doing, it might help.
I suspect he actually, he might have been saying it tongue-in-cheek, but I think he kind of might also believe it. And I'm not saying I don't believe it either.
Yeah, in that instance, what he was saying was that so he's using this really silly example of this woman was trying to shift her weight onto her left side, but she wasn't allowing her right side to move. So she had an intention of shifting her left side, but she was completely cross-motivated, and her right side was staying still. And he was saying the only way you could do that is if you actually had a joint in your pelvis, that you let the left side move relative to the right. So he's using that, and in his brain, I can only suppose what's happening in his brain, but having listened around either side of this talk, is that this is what we do in life, in our relationships. We think we're moving in a certain direction, but actually we're holding ourselves back, you know, metaphorically. And then we're wondering why we get a response. We get the response that we do, because at the heart of it is we don't know what we're doing. So through this process of self-awareness, if you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. And then when you see a behaviour in somebody else, you know how much of that is you. And, you know, like if I think I'm moving forward to somebody, but I'm doing what she was doing, which is holding myself back, and let's say that's a metaphor for the relationship, and I think I'm moving into the relationship, but all they see is me pulling myself back, then, you know, we're divorced. And I think, how the hell did that happen? You know, because I didn't know I was pulling back when I thought I was pushing forward. So it's very metaphorical, and you think, oh, that's just way too simple, and go and see a psychiatrist because it's more complicated. But that's his metaphor, in a way, yeah. So, you know, you can, I find that talk very interesting from a relationship point of view. And, you know, people hearing about, well, is it, in a relationship, am I so intent on my own intentions and my own orientation and my own timing, or am I totally reacting to their orientation and their timing? Sorry?
And that's self-sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it becomes defensive in a way, doesn't it? Because all you're doing is reacting and, yeah. So can you see how that, you know, that, so then in Feldenkrais, there is a bit of a tendency for everyone to go so in and just look after myself. It's all about ease. It's all about comfort. It's all about me. No, you say, well, you're going to, you know, I want you to do this, but I'm sensing myself when I say I don't want to. And that is true. We start with ourselves. But there is always this, then, especially because you're in a training program, is how is it for me, then how is it for you? And then as we're doing an FI together, or as I'm teaching an ATM and you're the student on the floor, can I pay attention to both of us in that systems perspective, what we would now call a systems perspective, which he didn't call it that because the word wasn't around in the 50s, but yeah. That's,
his intention in sort of saying, well, I like you, what you're doing, and...
oh, that's just him being naughty, yeah.
But I didn't know whether that was a bit of an example of what you're talking
Oh,
about.
maybe it is, yeah,
Of
yeah.
being, something pushing away, and I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of politics happening in the background here, and he's having a go at them a lot. He's being very provoking about a lot of things, and he's getting a lot of written feedback every night that he comes, and he comes in the next morning and responds to it and really cracks it. One of his, he mentioned it, you might have picked it up, about this writing notes business. He's just going on and on and on about it, and people are taking him literally and not seeing that what he's saying behind taking notes is stop and listen, because it might be something you've never heard before. And, you know, if you take notes, what you're doing is encoding it back into something, you know, that he mentioned that about the filing system. But the having favourites, not having favourites, yeah, he often has a little thing about that, because I think he gets accused of having favourites. But actually he's just very attentive to everybody in a bizarre way, you know, in that way, yeah.
Or that he chose that girl to sort of...
Yeah.
Really talk about.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot in... Sorry?
Surely you can point out students that, like, this one, look at her, because
Yeah.
she...
Yeah, he
well,
does, yeah.
I'm making a point now.
Yeah.
Isn't that different?
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, like...
Yeah.
Otherwise you can't use the example.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and that's what he does all the time. And what we're starting to do with you now that you're learning to trust each other and not feel self-conscious. So the actual talk is... I'm going to chuck that one away because it's horrible. So I'm going to get this one.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Was he saying the 12-6 movement? Some people accidentally do it this way.
Yes.
And by chance, that means they actually do go back onto the hip that doesn't usually touch the floor.
Oh, yeah, so that was an
as a
important
result of
point.
that, they figure out that they have that hip and then they sit on it, but then they feel a little weird about sitting on it.
Yeah.
Is that what he was saying?
It's I see this a lot in my practice because I work with people who are so asymmetrical. So I mean, one point that he was saying was that people, I mean, the punchline is that it's very confusing. So we'll get to the punchline first. But he's saying that people think they're going 12 to 6, but if they're habitually, say, a little contracted here, so that actually their starting point is asymmetrical to start with. So now if they think they're going 12 to 6 and they don't know that they're doing this little contraction here. So I think, and I'll exaggerate it like he did so you can see it, but it's much more subtle. And look, we all do this. We all are all slightly asymmetrical. So if I think that now this is my neutral and I go 12 to 6, I might go back and I'll think that 12 is here. But can you see I'm actually doing a more on the left. So I'm busy practicing my asymmetry in a way, But because these new, we start doing things both ways, and then her system, in that case, realised that there was this asymmetrical holding here, so she's actually slightly side flexed here. So that kind of lets go, and then so she can come back, and she's never been back here on her right ischium before. So that's really weird for her.
So when she's doing the block,
Yeah.
then she,
Yeah.
oh, I've got that
Yeah.
option available.
Yeah. So then what I see with my clients is that they when they come back onto their right ischium like this, now actually I'm equal, but for them it feels like they're like this because they've completely recalibrated what middle is being in the middle for them is this. So when they actually find the middle, it doesn't feel like the middle, it feels like that far to the right. So then they have to readjust their whole self-image because they actually don't know where they are in space anymore. Because another part of their system is saying, actually, the weight's equal on each ischium. So that's what the punchline is, confusion, because all of a sudden I don't know where the middle is anymore. So if I don't know where the middle is, do I know who I am? Do I really know where I am in space? So I work with a lot of people who are very asymmetrical, and we do a lot of this sort of stuff in standing and, with eyes shut and find the middle. And it's so confusing for them, but so profound when they feel a new middle, and then will their system accept that that's the new middle or not is another question. But it's really interesting. And the other group of people I work a lot with are people who have vestibular disorders, who actually don't know where they are in space half the time, like they're getting movement hallucinations, i.e. dizziness. And the anxiety that provokes when you don't know where you are in space, the anxiety is phenomenal. And that's how I started working with these people, because I had a reputation after my training of working with people with anxiety. So I'd get all these people with anxiety. You talk to them and they say, well, actually, I feel dizzy all the time. And it was very apparent that the anxiety came out of the dizziness and not the other way around. That's how I got into that sort of area. So, we can't underestimate how discombobulating it is to not know where we are in space, and why people will go back to a habit. Because at least if I do this feels normal, and I know where I am, therefore, in brackets, I know who I am because I'm here. And so when you work with, and maybe you've had that experience already where you've really felt quite discombobulated after an FI or an ATM? Maybe not yet, maybe it's been so... Last week, yeah. And it's actually a great space. That confusion is a great space because it's where learning can happen. But you have to sit with it, because if the fear takes over, you'll go back to here. And then maybe that's fine. Yep.
Just in terms of orientation and space, I've done some circus stuff, and a lot of that, your head goes upside down, and then I found as soon as your head's upside down, what's forward, what's back, what's left, what's right, it's completely thrown because you're so familiar in this way, and then you go upside down, and it's probably not that hard, but it's completely gone.
Yep. Yeah. And it's like your anchors
until you
have
get
gone.
comfortable in that orientation, and then you know which your directions are.
Exactly. So orientation it's such a fundamental thing, and we do it spontaneously, and we don't think about it, but it's really fundamental to who we are and whether what we're doing is purposeful or not. So if we think that we're orienting to our partner like this, and actually we're going back like that, orientate, like he's saying, that kind of cross motivation thing, his intention is to touch the skeleton, but he's oriented this way, and you don't, and that's an extreme example, but if you don't know where your orientation is, or it's not aligned with the action, then we're at cross purposes and we're not functional anymore. So that's an example of orientation. And why in Feldenkrais we work in different orientations all the time. So we've had 3 slightly different orientations with the pelvic clock so far. They're all face up, but on your back, flat, on your elbows and on your hands. So that's 3 slightly different orientations, which mean the muscles around the pelvis have less or more gravity assisting different ways. So that's orientation has to do with organisation in terms of gravity, but also has implications in terms of where my senses are directed as well. So, because so my orientation changed. because you were interested in that relationship thing, I'm orienting to you now. And I'm looking for you for feedback and stimulus and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas if I was interested in something that you were saying, you know, that Charlie was interested in, I'm not oriented to her at all. So she might be that's saying something as well.
That's what he was saying about the favourites. It's not really about...
That's what you meant.
favourite.
Yeah, that's what Trish meant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah. I think you're right. Mm. You can listen to this stuff a million times and hear different things every time. Yes.
I heard something about forgetting.
Did you hear something about forgetting? I've forgotten.
Something about
Forgetting something about forgetting.
about the next day and who's going to remember it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That is our target.
Yeah. Okay, so anything interesting about the timing? So how often do you think about timing in your actions? And the example was really graphic, right? That you can reach for the skeleton, and that can be a reach to hold. But if it's a fast timing, it's a push away. And if you don't know the difference in the timing of your actions, so timing is a huge thing for me. What I've really had to learn. It was very, very good for me early on in my career, because you might have noticed I'm quite speedy. But working with people with head injury was such a gift, you know, when I graduated, because if you're speedy with them, you lose them. Like they adjust the first 3 words and I've lost them because, you know, they can't process quickly. So it was so good for me. Imagine what I'd be like without that experience. Imagine how fast I'd be. It'd be unbearable. Doesn't mean to say that I have to stop being fast, you know, but I can be fast when I want to, and now I know how to be slow. And I can slow you down, or I can help you slow down if you want to slow down with me. So timing, you know, is really interesting. Do you have any insights about the timing issue? Yes.
I might have got this wrong, but I thought there was some point where you talked about Trish movement involving
Ice cream.
And whether, and watching some people, they're more aware of some aspect of the timing orientation and
Yes.
manipulation. So I'm thinking with me, when I'm learning something, the timing is the first thing I use to try and learn something. So to slow
Smart
things
girl.
down.
Yeah.
But I think I'm completely unaware of the other things when I'm doing it. So
Yeah.
I don't know how to shift sort of between those.
Yeah.
two.
No, and this is great. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better comment, because this is going to be probably your homework. Is to think about your actions in daily life and which is your predominant thing that grabs your attention. So for me, I was forced to pay attention to timing because of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to work with in my life. So I had that opportunity, but it wasn't present for me. So it was brought to my attention by circumstance, if you like, and seeing that if I didn't adapt my timing, I'd fail with people. So and I don't want to paraphrase too much because I'm not entirely, but usually about this point, Julie likes you to start thinking about this in your life and what is your thing. So some people are really good at orienting. Like I think my son is really good at orienting. And he's quite shy, but people really like meeting him. They say, oh, he's a really nice guy. Because when there's something about when he looks at you, and it's shy, it's not like he's charismatic or anything, but he just knows how to orient to people, and it's extraordinary. I see him, he opens the front door for visitors and stuff, and I see he just does this thing, and he's very big guy, a very soft and sort of gentle guy, but there's something about, so he does orientation really well. There's a whole lot of other stuff he does really shit, but, you know, like getting a job, but no, let's not go there. Let's not go there. Joe Hockey's doing a bad enough job parenting these poor kids. Gonna need to add to their woes anyway. So he's really good at that. But he's not very good at action. Not very good at galvanising. But when he focuses, it's this quality, and I'm really in awe of it because he didn't get it from me. But anyway, yeah, Jodie.
Can I make a comment about?
No. Yes, you can.
Time ago, but to
Yeah,
timing.
yeah.
So I've been doing youth work,
Yeah.
and
I moved to the country to slow down.
Yeah.
And I slowed down. But
Great.
then doing youth work and working with disengaged teenagers that I have been for the last 3 years, they're very fast. So
Yeah.
I actually have to be the opposite of being slow.
Yeah.
I have to speed myself up to slow them down.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's that pacing that, you know, that they talk about, you know, psychologists talk about when you're, you know, doing interviews and stuff. It's, or and the NLP people talk about, you know, a lot of different approaches. Talk about, you know, you're meeting somebody kind of where they're at, and then you pace back to somewhere in the middle sort of thing, which we do in FI all the time. Yeah, it's in a very somatic way. So as soon as anyone says, can I get naughty. Sorry, Jodie. You know that I do that though. Because of course you can. And I won't make you say, may I? So are you having thoughts, is this exciting some thoughts in you about action, orientation, timing, or you want it fading?
I'm not sure I understand the word manipulation.
No, yeah. It's because it keeps changing it. Sorry, I interrupted you. Beg your pardon.
Oh.
Keep going.
I was just saying I'm not sure that I'm a bit of a slow learner, so I haven't quite cottoned on to what he means by manipulation.
Yeah. So, sorry that I'm getting fuzzed. So sometimes he calls it manipulation, sometimes he calls it action, sometimes he calls it self-organisation. So in some ways you could say he's not clear about it, it's quite an umbrella term. Actually, and even that time I noticed there was some other word that he slotted in there. I thought, oh, I must remember it, and I can't remember what it is now. Intention, thank you, yeah.
No, I think the intention creates everything else.
Creates everything else?
Yeah, I think you have the intention,
Oh.
you do it with all of the other things.
All right.
Intention, timing, and so on, orientation.
He said if we write them together, intention, timing.
Yeah, he does mix it around a lot. So let's just say there's this whole thing. In a way, I think about this is the function. In my head, this is kind of the activity, if you like. This is the intention of the activity, the purpose, the movement itself. So let's say it's shelling peas. That's my intention is to get the peas out of the pod. My action is around splitting the pod and getting the peas out. My manipulation is the movement. So those things it's that arena, it's that thing that I'm doing. So I think that they all do kind of fit into that, but it's not one thing, it's the activity itself. And am I oriented to it? And what's my timing around doing it? So again, it's the same, it's the pie. How do you cut up the pie? In this segment of Amherst, he's really interested in this way of cutting up the pie. Another segment, he probably completely doesn't use this language at all. Julie, I personally don't think a lot this way, but Julie teaches this really well, so it's just a shame he got teaching it. But I get it. I get the timing, I really get the orientation, and I get the function of the activity. Yeah.
Just remembering Julie.
I think Julie defined it as how you compose a movement.
So it's a self-organisation. Yeah. See, to me, there's so much richness in that they're all worth teasing out as well. But time is a good way to think about it. You know, the action or the manipulation. It's not manipulation as in, you know, it's the movement, activity. I keep doing that because that's what it is. It's that business.
Move with intent.
Yes, and you know, all movement has an intention at some level. I think Zoran talked about intention last week.
Well, not very much.
And the relationship.
He says intention is your thought, and
Yeah, and the action comes out of it.
Another person's intention is.
No, you can only see it in action. You can guess at the intention behind an action, but you can't know for sure. And I agree. I mean,
Intention sets all the other stuff up.
it can do, but then the timing can set up the intention in a way as well. Or you know, it's interdependent. You know, I'm not sure that it's useful to think about it in a linear way. And intentions get clarified as we act. That's the thing. It's not like you have an intention and then you act. You have an intention, you act, your intentions get clarified, you might restate your intention or reframe your intention and keep acting, and these things are very circular.
And maybe intention goes out the window if you're in the flow.
Well, the intention is so pure.
There might be an initial intention
Yeah.
to try and get to there,
Yeah.
but then you have to it has to become, you have to lose the cognitive in some way, like you have to
Yeah.
stop thinking.
Yeah, the cognition part of it. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and he's saying that you're exactly right. He's saying that the intention becomes subconscious, which is Pat's point about stopping getting in the way of yourself. So your intention doesn't go through all those other filters, and that's
automaticity.
yes, which doesn't mean it's not intention. You don't have an intention, but the intention is so deeply integrated that you're not interfering with yourself through metacognition and going, oh, I shouldn't really be doing that. It's that thing about dancing when nobody's looking stuff, isn't it? You
So
stop messing with your intention, maybe.
And the orientation, sorry, I'm going to...
Yeah, just do the ice cream so that we can catch
The
you.
orientation issue, I'm trying to tease this out, that's different to orientation that we're talking about when we're talking about the planes earlier this
No, it's the same as well.
Or is it?
It's part of it.
It's still part of that.
Yeah. So, and there's lots of, classically we talk about orientation in terms of where our attention is and where our intention is directed. So at this point I'm oriented to you in terms of conversation, but I might have just realised I've got my coffee sitting here, so now I've got two intentions and I've got two orientations, like I'm directing my teleceptors to you, but my tactile and my are being oriented to grab the coffee cup and I'm nowhere near it, so I'm not well oriented for that. But so I've got two orientations going on there. So it's about, do I get the bits of me that need to be directed towards the activity, are they being directed towards the activity?
Could I ask?
No.
Right, yeah, sorry.
Yes, of course.
I'm going to ask.
Good. Excellent.
Maybe this is too broad, but I feel like so much of what we've learned is about sort of asking questions, and so I'm wondering if could the manipulation action be like the what, and the orientation be the where, and the timing sort of be the how, in a way.
Yeah, that would be very nice. Very nice.
It's broader, it's not specific, but I feel like that could be an easy. Because also then, I feel like I know one of my problems is working with expectation of an outcome, and perhaps if I'm just in question mode, then I'm being curious and I'm not expecting anything.
Yeah, and then your intention softens.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the how, what, why stuff, I know I've taught groups where people have really gone after me because there's a whole approach that apparently has a great deal of meaning, and they attach a great deal of meaning to those different words. And one of my colleagues in Brisbane, Leslie, she doesn't go after me because she's too kind to do that, but when she's setting up group work, those words are used really specifically. I'm just telling you that because I don't know what they are specifically, but I think you can do that, and because they evoke very different responses. And I know in qualitative research, those words are used really like dynamite because they evoke different things. The why and the what and the how. Yeah. Or the who. And the when. And the where.
Why not?
Are we ready for lunch? So I can tell by your timing that you're not that ready for lunch because nobody went and you didn't change your orientation. So I can, that's telling me something. And there was no major movements or actions. You're looking.
If people have ordered lunch, then 1:30 is.
Oh right, okay, so it's 1:25. Timing is